All right, so I've had a lot of requests if I could just look at some old school stuff, for a change, instead of all the newfangled, digital stuff, the Strikers and stuff like that, which are all, mostly modern designs, all digital radios, and just go back to some of the old analog. So, okay. So with that said, every once in a while, I'll get someone who says they've got something in their parts bin, and I've been accumulating stuff for a while. Hey, I've got some junk in my parts bin. So then I always tell people, if you've got stuff in your junk bin, in your parts bin, and it's reasonably intact, I wouldn't mind trying to fix it. So that's how I came across to have this 88 board in my possession. Sure, somebody sent it to me. I tell a lot of people that I've talked to over the years, hey, I wouldn't mind attempting to repair it because I really don't want it for parts. I actually want to fix it. So with that said, I've got one here, and it was in someone's parts box, in their tub, their box, wherever they store their parts, or however, on the shelf, regardless. So a lot of times these things will be sitting there and they'll have stuff on top of them. They'll be in a box. They'll get stuff thrown on top of it. So some of them get kind of smashed up. And this one's actually in reasonably good shape for being on a parts shelf or a parts bin or whatever board. No front panel. As you can see, the front UI has just been cut off. So I'm going to give this a once over. And I'm really curious if you, the viewer, thinks that I can make this work. Can I make this work? There are a few things going for this. It's got all the inductors and transformers. They're all here. Doesn't mean they're good, but they're here. So that's a big deal, because they're here. I don't see anything that has a cracked slug in it. Just looking at it, I don't see any. Doesn't mean they haven't been turned over or whatever, and that's fine. Whatever. If it's been turned over, but that might be a good idea. And usually, what I'll do something like this, I'll pull all of the slugs out to find out if any of them have been turned over and the other side's cracked. So literally, just remove all the slugs. So there are obviously parts missing. The lead from the SO back here is gone. That's probably being in a box. Probably got smashed off. This is soldered in here. Some people solder these in. They're afraid they're going to come out. Whatever. So that'll have to be cleaned up. It's a little bit of Sony Bond on the other side where it was. They use Sony Bond to hold it in there. It's been busted loose. See some parts in here that are missing. Transistors here is Mrs. TR17. That's missing. See a lead sticking up here from a cap. That's missing. It's been busted off. Various parts in various locations are smashed down. This potentiometer is missing the top. These capacitors over here, I see this one's got a big dent in the side, and this one also has a big dent in the side. I don't know how visible that is. This guy right here, one of these guys right there, if it focuses, you see it's smashed. Again, it was on a shelf or in a bin or something like that, with stuff probably thrown on top of it. This polycap's sitting the wrong way, so that lead's been busted off of it. I see leads sticking up over here. Those two are just missing, probably busted off. The leads are in the board and just bent over. They've been smashed out. Again, in somebody's parts bucket. I thought there was another wire back here on these radios that's missing. So probably that's been, ripped out as well. There was a harness back here where these adders would normally be, and they would go to another board. That's harness is missing. So this is my thought with this. This op amp's missing. A lot of soldering over here. A lot of flux all over the place. It actually looks cleaner on the camera than it actually is. It's kind of misleading because it's actually it's pretty bad. It just looks cleaner. It's like, especially some of these areas over here, these are bad. This is over here is just horrible. Some in here, over here, over here. This is a weird area. This is like, I think this is a transmit receive switch over there. That's an odd place to be fooling with. And of course, back in here. And see some parts, the pads are open, some parts missing pulled out over here, something over here. Parts have already been removed, some over here. Probably related to clarifier unlocks or something. The steering diodes have probably been removed. So yeah, it's dirty. It's got parts missing that I've identified some missing parts and some parts that have been smashed that have to be replaced. So my thought with this is to fix it, or at least to have a good fighting chance to start with, is I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it in an ultrasonic cleaner. I'm going to throw some Branson in it, ultrasonic cleaner, turn on the heat, melt this paraffin out since it's been messed around with a lot over here. Melt that paraffin out. Do an ultrasonic cleaner, turn the heat up a little bit, it'll melt that wax out, and clean it all up at the same time. So we'll end up with a clean board, and the flux will all be gone, and we'll go from there here on this and see what happens. But it's going to need some, at least, I think those are polys that are missing. That one's just broken. This one doesn't. No, those are not broken. So there'll be more parts that I find that'll be missing. Yeah, there's some parts missing down in there. There's a cap at least that's missing. So there's quite a few things. I think there's supposed to be a resistor down there too. Yeah, well, it was desoldered, or at least it looks like it, so it's missing. A lot of stuff is going to have to be corrected. The fracture on the board's not that terrible over here, and there's a fracture here and here. It's not terrible. It's not really broken through much, so I'm not really worried about that. So, can it be fixed? Find out on the follow-up to this. So, go ahead, put this in the ultrasonic, clean it up, and when it's gone through its bath, I will attempt. I'll have to get some of the obviously dented parts out, like the caps and things like that. I would not want to power it up with the capacitors in those conditions. I'll check them all, make sure that we don't have anything that's obvious that's going to be a problem, like electrolytics that have been crushed that are probably shorted, and then power it up, and then go through each power rail and see what power rails we have, what power rails we don't have, and minimally just check some basic stuff and see what is and isn't working, to get an idea of where we stand. But what it looks like is every particular area or a circuit or sub-circuit in this radio has probably been affected in some way. So my guess is nothing works on this. So it'll just have to be gone through and see what happens. So with that said, I'm going to put this to the side, and then I'm going to bring up another thing that's been interesting that I've heard about. See if you guys can tell me more about it. So, and I've got to reach over here and grab this. So, you've got this 88 here. I know some people are familiar with the Stryker 440. And the Stryker 440 architecturally was not very dissimilar to this radio. It had a PA module on the back with a flange mount transistor. And I've had a few people over the last couple of months send me a message or an email or whatever, and they'll like to say, hey, did you see the guy who interfaced or took a 440 board and put it into a 655? Okay, so a 440 architecturally is similar, newer than this. It had a newer PLL, and and some other things. It's basically the same architecture as one of these 88s, or even one of these 3900s. The board color, in fact, I believe was similar on the 440 to this Superstar 3900, but the 440 didn't have the SWR bridge. It had like the antenna warning and a few other things. So it's the whole, I took a 440, which is architecturally similar to this, with the boards look identical, except for the PLL area. It had a selector on it, but it was controlled by, there was a microcontroller in it that did the selector to PLL interface that was digital. It had a digital controlled PLL, and it was use a SPI bus. And so, but I asked questions like, and this is interfaced with a second version 655, which would look like this. This is a 955, but 655 it's literally the same board. There's the front panel is different and the writing is different, but the boards are the same. And these are digitally, all the analog controls are fed into some ADCs, and then the positions of the controls are measured. So to interface this with this is a non-trivial task. No matter how you do it, you're going to have to design something and have some glue logic to control its digital PLL. So you need a micro at a minimum to do it. So you need a microcontroller, and then you're going to have to re-implement the VISWAR stuff, the SWR on the 440, because it had that board in it that like did the warning or whatever. So you have to take that bridge data, read it into some ADCs. These controls read them into ADCs unless you tried to wire them directly into the existing 440's analog controls, which I don't know. I haven't looked at compared notes to know what control did what. But what I'm getting at is that's a fairly impressive feat, because there's some engineering involved there. There's some glue logic. You're going to have to write some code. You're going to have to do some interfacing with stuff. SWR stuff's going to be interesting, and this is sight unseen. I'm just going off of memory of what I remember about a 440. Now again, this isn't a 440, but it's, like I said, similar architecture. But when I ask, hey, where's the video? Crickets. So I don't know if it's true that someone did it, that someone sat there and spent the time to write a program and create the glue logic that's going to be necessary to take this world to this world. Mind you, I asked these questions like, did all the meters work, and was this a counter or a frequency display? And it's like, no, it's an actual counter. And I'm like, oh, so they've implemented even a frequency counter on their microcontroller. Okay, very cool. I'd like to see it. But no, when I ask, show it, it turns into crickets. Then the people don't respond with the video. So I don't know if it's real, or if I have a feeling that people are yanking my chain on that, but I would like to see it, because that's a non-trivial task. It really is non-trivial, and I think it's impressive. And for whoever's done it, I mean, shit, my hat is off to them, because it's a lot of work. But that said, next video, I'll go over this and see where we stand with this thing. Whether or not, I've been able to make any headway once I've got this cleaned. I'll have to, the update will be after I've replaced this, and with what works and what doesn't work, and go from there. So, cheers for now. Till next time.